What are three things that leaders need to do when change and adversity strike? I'm Chester Elton. This is my co-author and dear friend, Adrian Gostick.
Thanks, Chess. Yeah, how do leaders face challenges with dignity and grace, and how do they take care of themselves, their people, and prepare for the future? That's our topic for today, and we hope that time you spend with us will help reduce the stigma of anxiety at work and in your personal life.
And with us today is our dear friend, John Baldoni, a globally recognized leadership educator, executive coach, and author of 16 books translated into 10 languages. John's latest book is Grace Under Pressure, Leading Through Change and Crisis. John joins us as a member of the renowned 100 Coaches founded by Marshall Goldsmith, and he writes for publications such as Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and Inc.com. We've known John for a long time. We love this guy. Welcome to the podcast, John. We're delighted to have you here.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be with you, Chester and Adrian. Thanks for this opportunity. I am very excited about my this new book, and I'm taking a clue from Marshall's last book, The Earned Life, when he was launching it. He said, I am so excited. I love this book, so I'm not going to hide it.
Good for you.
Well, that's great.
Chester,
Okay.
I owe you, Chester, a very special thank you. The book is called Grace Under Pressure, Leading Through Change and Crisis. The subtitle was yours. We were in a Connect group, and I was talking about this idea, and you just tossed that out, and I go, sold. So thank you.
You're welcome, John. Glad to be of service.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah. And he's contributed many of our subtitles as well. So, yeah. Hey, start us out on a high level then about the book. So what do leaders need to do to help their people through times of change and crisis, as the subtitle says?
Well, at basic, it's three things. One, take care of your people. Two, take care of yourself. And three, prepare for the future. Now, those ideas are time immemorial. What I have done with Grace Under Pressure is add the element of grace. So what do I mean by grace? This is my third book on the topic of grace. And grace to me is the catalyst for the greater good. It facilitates the connection between us. And when you're in a leadership position, taking care of your people, taking care of yourself in preparation for the future, how exciting is it to shed a little bit of kindness, generosity, respect, and most importantly, compassion as you go forward. And the thing about Grace Under Pressure, I like to say this book has muscle into it, giving grace muscle. And what do I mean by that? It's the courage, and it's a conviction, and it's to stand up and act for what you believe in. And that's what great leaders do. They stand up for their people, they stand up for their ideas, and they pull people together for common cause.
You know, it's a great visual, at least a mental visual for me, to give grace muscle, because we often think that grace is this soft thing that, you know, people can kind of walk over, and you're saying, hey, the grace actually allows you that strength to stand up and you know, and what you believe in and take a stand. I'm curious though, what are some of the most common mistakes leaders make when they're under pressure?
Well, I think the most important, what we see most often is they shut down. And if they don't shut down, they react and overact. And so they lose it. And either they withdraw or they impose themselves in a fretful way on others. Do this, do that, with no plan, with no outcome. What we look for, what leaders do in times of crisis is just to slow things down, act common. You guys are sports fans, and one of the biggest things when a collegiate athlete either goes into baseball or to pro football or basketball, it's the speed of the game that overwhelms them. Over time, things slow down. They don't really, but mentally, their perception of it. And that's what leaders need to do in times of crisis. And, you know, I've had, both of you have been guests on my show, Grace Under Pressure, and I've had the opportunity to talk to so many leaders from different walks of life. And they talk about, you know, keeping it calm and collected when things are just going crazy. So.
I love that idea of slowing down too. I was just watching a clip yesterday of, just the old Tobey Maguire of Spider-Man, and he's the big bully is trying to beat him up, and he's all of a sudden got these powers and he's able to slow things down. And I just thought, wouldn't that be wonderful if we could do that in our lives? And I love that idea. Yeah, that's what great leaders do. Another thing you said great leaders do is they do this process of rebuilding, which I was intrigued by. Walk us through that.
Rebuilding is an idea I borrowed from our colleague, Mark Thompson, who was in one of our calls talked about rebuilding a house, or a colleague of his had lost it, and then build it better. And our president now talks about that. But what it means is, first of all, if you're going to rebuild, I think you owe it to your people to affirm what's come before. It's not like we're going to blank slate everything. We've learned a lot. We know one another. We know our strengths. We're going to build upon those things but we're going to do it better. So how do we do it better? Well, we get the best ideas. And where do those best ideas come from? Our own people. And you know what you have to do with our own people? Listen, set it up, ask for their suggestions. You guys know this so well from the great work that you've done and all of your books about just listening to your people. That's where such great ideas come from. And also not be afraid to seek outside help. And one of the folks I interviewed in one of my shows talked about, it was Julia Burstein, talked about when women lead. And she said a lot of women leaders in top positions did well during the lockdown in the initial stages of the pandemic. Why? Because they weren't afraid to ask for help. We men sometimes, we're driven by this alpha dog concept of, I gotta know all the answers, I gotta be in control. And that's okay, but it's very limiting. At least it is in my sphere. So why not ask for help from others?
Yeah, ask for help. Most guys I know won't even ask for directions, So that vulnerability of hey, I need help really is a lesson we can all focus on a lot more. I'm curious as to how mental safety plays into your work. You talk a lot about, resilience. How do you teach and foster more of that as leaders?
Well, I think mental safety really comes down from a sense of creating community. And that's really the ethos of psychological safety, which Amy Edmondson has pioneered in her work for the last couple of decades. And so psychologically safety is that ability to feel that I can voice my ideas, I will be heard, and it's also that sense that I belong. And when I talk about community, which is a sub-theme of this, it doesn't mean that, it means we have shared values, but we all don't think, we don't all act alike, because acting alike and thinking alike leads us into problems. We call it groupthink. But when you belong part of a community, we can disagree among one another, but we have values that hold us together. And I think that's where something I've talked about with Grace is that purpose nurtures our mission and our vision and mission. But grace nurtures our values, what we believe, why we believe it, and what holds us together. And what that is community.
That's such a, powerful term that nobody, I don't think we grasp this enough, is how important community is, especially as we've gone to this hybrid world. And you're right, Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety is really important in helping us understand, how, she calls it the fearless organization. In fact, we interviewed Amy for our book, Anxiety at Work, and it's funny, she said, I don't want to be known as the psychological safety person. She says, I am so much more than that. And I was like, sorry, Amy, tough,
Too late.
Yeah, too late.
Too late.
Yeah, Chester is the gratitude guy. John is the grace guy. You are psychological safety. And we are who we are. And by the way, you are the grace guy. So how do people learn more about that work, John? Where would you send them?
Well, the easiest thing is a couple of things. My website, johnbaldoni.com. The other thing is I do a regular podcast or streamcast on LinkedIn Live, try to do a show once a week. As I mentioned, you guys have both been guests. And the other thing is, I write regularly for Forbes and other venues, Smart Brief. But also I have a blog, which, collected works, which is I call it the johnbaldoniblog.com. How original. And there's a lot of my collected thoughts there.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, keep us focused. That's great. Okay, so a couple of other ideas that jumped out in your work were empathy, which we talk a lot about, and also joy. And when a leader may see that, they may go, okay, those seem to be at opposite ends of the spectrum. But I think you and we would argue that they're connected. So walk us through those ideas and how a leader can maybe use them together in their leadership style.
You're right. I had not linked them, but empathy is an ability. We often define it as an ability to feel one's pain, but empathy is also the ability to feel one's joy. And so, if you're having a good day, you guys are writing partners, business partners, you know each other very well, and you celebrate one another's successes, and that's both, and your defeats too. You both experience that, and that's what leaders do. But I always like to say taking empathy one step further in leadership. And that is, empathy must be expressed. And what do we call the expression of empathy? We call it compassion. And compassion is that ability to act on what you feel to make things better when possible. So
it's interesting. I just had a conference I spoke at recently, and a guy came up to me because we talked about empathetic leaders, and he said, I think we need to take it a notch higher and go to compassion. And as we kind of talked it through, I wish I had talked to you right before I talked to him, because I love that empathy must be expressed, and that expression is compassion. Well, really well said, John. Hey, you mentioned in your 3, take care of your people, take care of yourself, prepare for the future. So lots of leaders are close to, if not completely burned out. How can they take better care of themselves? How do we do that? Take care of self.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because I really wanted to include a section on taking care of yourself, because you know what? Leaders do a lousy job of that. And I think partly it's because they're pushed and pulled in different directions, but also leaders by nature are outwardly directed. So it's easy to ignore themselves. I had the opportunity years ago to work with a dance troupe, learning movement and things like that, and that physicality of it. We, all of us listener to this program, live in the cognitive realm. So we're up in our heads all the time. We need to get in tune with how we're feeling. So it's so important to act on self-care. The problem is that there's a stigma about it. As you well know from your book on anxiety, I should be able to power through this. Well, maybe you can't. And so leaders, one step, need to make it safe for others to say, hey, I have an issue. And the thing about burnout is you're not just harming yourself, you're harming the team. And when you guys know, I know from your research, when you're clocking these crazy hours day after day, month after month, all of this kind of stuff, essentially you're diminishing your capacities. You become an awake drunk. You're not high, but a task that would take an hour takes 3 hours or whatever. And your mind is not clicking. You're not making connections. And so you owe it to yourself to slow down. And sometimes, part of this, I was talking to someone the other day about it, is why don't we do it? I think that's a part of a fear. It's like, well, my team needs me. Yeah, but are you so important that no one else on earth can do your job? Well, probably not. And there are other people. And, this is where grace comes in. And this is where a leader comes in. If I see one of my folks in distress, I pull them aside and I say, Adrian, I know you're going through a lot. You need to decompress. And you'll go, Adrian will say, I got a lot of stuff going on. Yes, Adrian, but I need you. The team needs you. And I can't have you the way you are. And I want the best Adrian. I can't have a 50% Adrian. And so that's how leaders make it safe. But they need to turn that lens inside themselves too. So.
Oh, a 50% Adrian. That's still quite a lot. Yeah. Hey. So
yes.
okay. So let's see if you practice what you preach, John. We're always interested in the self-care tactics of successful people. So walk us through a few practices you've found that can help you take care of yourself first.
I don't need it. I'm perfect. I'm just kind of great the way I am. Why are you asking me this? No, actually, I've learned a lot about this and part of it is knowing you guys, reading your work. How about that for an endorsement, huh? Seriously, friendship is important. Invest in your friends, build in relationships, family, of course. But friendship has become very, very important to me as I like to say I'm in the last rodeo of where I am, and so I can see the sunset closer than other people. And so it's taking time to think, reflect, meditate is good. For me, I have two passions outside family and friends. One is piano. And I play it regularly every day. And I have the opportunity to play live in a hospital where I'm a headliner because I'm the only one there. And then the other thing is I play golf and I enjoy being outside. I exercise regularly, but part of the golf is also the socialization with my friends. And again, so that's my self-care. And of course, grandkids, they keep you, as Chester well knows, they keep you hopping. So
yeah, and joyful, right, at the same time. So wonderful conversation, John. We knew it would be great fun to have you on the podcast. If you were to say, look, if you just could remember one or two things out of the conversation that you'd want our listeners to walk away with, what would those one or two things be?
Well, I'd want them to know that you contributed to the subtitle, Chester.
There you go. Thank you.
Other than that, there isn't anything else. No, to learn the power of grace. And I deal with grace from the secular sense. Many of us know it from the faith-based tradition, but as we think about it as the catalyst for good, what does that mean? It enables us to engage, to reach out to others, to meet them where they are. And the other thing is what we touched on before, show grace to yourself. We're all part of a community, and none of us are in this alone. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Show grace to yourself.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, our guest has been John Baldoni. His latest book of one of 16 that he has written is Grace Under Pressure, Leading Through Change and Crisis, available at fine bookstores everywhere. I've got a copy, and you should have a copy, too. Thanks for being on the show, John. You've been great.
Thanks, John.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Well, Chess, another good, insightful session here with John Baldoni this time, who says three things we need to do when times are challenging. And by the way, every organization we have ever worked with has gone through change and challenging times, right? So he says three things: take care of your people, take care of yourself, and prepare for the future.
The thing that I love about John's work around grace is, we talk a lot about, leading with gratitude and taking care of yourself as far as anxiety in the workplace. And these are softer skills in a lot of people's minds. And yet they're really hard skills, right? Because you're dealing with people. And so I so appreciate his work bringing in grace and giving yourself a little grace. So often we're so hard on ourselves. We're a lot harder on ourselves than anybody else would be. I loved his takeaway there at the end is, give some grace to yourself as well as the people around you. It was one of my big takeaways.
Well, and I think you're right, especially, you and I, we work with a lot of leaders, maybe who've just been promoted, and now they're leaders of leaders, and maybe they were a director, now they're a vice president, they got more. And as he said, things get faster. I remember hearing an interview once with a hockey referee who'd worked whole career in the minor leagues, and when there was a strike, he went up to the major, he went to the NHL. And he says, oh my gosh, it's like so much faster. And he says, I thought I knew hockey, but no. And he had to move at a much faster pace, and it took him a while. And well, the same happens when we go to sort of the major leagues. You move to the C-suite, that we have to slow things down. And he said a couple of things. When you rebuild, first off, you affirm what came before, then you dig and listen to find the best ideas.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help from your team. It's so funny you talk about that. I was at a hockey game literally last night, and it's so interesting to me that, the referees will make a call and then they go to instant replay. Well, instant replay slows it down like 100 times slower, and it's amazing how many times the referees got it right in real time. That when the game slows down, and of course that comes with experience and with patience, and John, I'm sure, would say with a little grace. His personal mental health practices, I thought, were really, really good. Sometimes we think, it's got to be meditation and a rigorous, diet and exercise workout. And he goes, look, I play the piano and I golf with my friends. Mm-hmm. And that really does it for him. And, family includes his grandkids. I think sometimes we say, okay, I've got to have this mental health regimen, and it's got to be
meditation and for half an hour, and
right. And we make it more complicated than it is. Hey, go for a walk. Hey, go play golf with your buddies. If that works for you, that's great.
And it really is. You're exactly right. It's what works for you. Some people need that meditation, but others don't. And it really is what works for you. I know you noted this too. Kind of last thing for me is that, look, empathy is a vital, important, but it's expressed through compassion. And I think that's really good. And as we've mentioned before, it's not, bummer, dude, let me help you. That's nice, but that's more sympathy. Compassion is understanding in yourself a time when you've struggled through something, and then kind of getting to that point so that you're able to really be compassionate to somebody versus, let me fix this for you.
Yeah. And my last takeaway is just simply when he said, look, burnout just doesn't harm you, it harms your team. And often we don't think of that ripple effect, that it takes us longer to do things, that our temper is shorter, we're less patient, we're less compassionate. So take care of yourself, because when you burn out, it's not just you that suffers as a leader, it ripples through your team. Well, we don't get to do all this great stuff without a great team. And we want to give a special thanks to Brent Klein, our amazing producer, and Christy Lawrence, who helps us find all these amazing guests. And of course, all of you that listen in. We hope that if you've enjoyed the podcast, that you download it and you share it with friends and family. So I'll leave the big finish to you.
Oh, wow. Thanks. Yeah. Well, we'd love you to visit thecultureworks.com. That's thecultureworks.com, because there's a bunch of free resources like the first chapter of our book, Anxiety at Work. And that is a best-selling book, right, Jess? Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I know the authors. They're wonderful.
And we love speaking to audiences around the world, virtually or in person, on the topics of culture, teamwork, resilience. So give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about your event. And Chester is now going to say something because...
Brent, you're probably wondering. And listen, it's been great being with you here today. We'll see you on the next edition. Take care and have a great week of mental health. Good mental health. Should probably give Brent a little heads up.
Okay, let's just do that ending again. Here we go. Okay. Let me do the last one where we switched over to me and I'll say, we love speaking. Okay,
great.
And we love speaking to audiences around the world, virtually or in person, on the topics of culture, teamwork, and resilience. So give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about your event.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us today on Anxiety at Work. Share it with your friends and have a great week of really good mental health. Cheers.